Trump campaign and she was supposed to introduce herself to the American people. No wonder people were Googling, did Joe Biden drop out? And so...
No. You saying 3 months wasn't long enough? It was too long.
Even now, there are still people who simply cannot accept Kamala Harris's loss in last year's election. Time has passed, but denial clearly hasn't.
Like we don't know in Britain, for instance, when you have a short election, it's not like you don't know who the leader of the party is for months and years before that.
You're either the person who's Googling the day before, did Biden drop out, or you know in a week. You know, did anyone in this audience not know enough about Kamala Harris pretty much after a week?
8 months later, and unbelievably, some Democrats are still blaming everything except Kamala herself. But Bill Maher isn't playing along. He believes she deserves a fair share of the responsibility, and he made that painfully obvious when a group of out-of-touch Democrats tried to shield her on his show. As always, make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, and let's break this down.
The thing the candidates, especially the Democrats, do to get voters annoys them. The constant texting. Did you get the texts like from Tim Walz every 5 minutes and like always begging for money and knocking on doors? And we've got people knocking on doors. People don't want knocking on your door. Who in this day and age wants someone knocking on? Kids don't even like it when if you a phone call. That's like too much of a invasion of their privacy.
Bill starts by laying out exactly why so many voters found Kamala Harris deeply unappealing. And honestly, none of it was inaccurate. Every point he listed pushed regular voters further away. All Democrats needed was a clear, sensible message and the confidence to trust voters to understand it. That should have been easy. Instead, they abandoned logic and spent their time catering to the woke activist crowd. When that strategy predictably failed, they didn't shift course. They doubled down with gimmicks, emotional pressure, and manipulation tactics. Because apparently, earning support is optional when you can try to engineer it instead.
Hasn't done anything yet, but I understand the.
This was the problem. You know, there was a 2014 study that showed that Fortune 500 companies were more likely to pick a female CEO if the company was struggling, basically setting women up for the big job, but to also fail. If they did well, fine. But if they failed, like, look, we have a female CEO while failing. And that's what I feel like they did to Kamala Harris. When Biden refused to step aside and not run again, he was supposed to be that bridge. He backed off on that promise due to arrogance. And then he drops out after a catastrophic debate performance, and they set Kamala Harris up to fail.
If you've followed this channel, you know the left's bad takes aren't rare. But this one was special. Sarah Isker spoke as if Kamala Harris had been randomly pulled from nowhere to replace Biden, as though she hadn't spent 4 years as vice president. For very public years. The level of mental gymnastics required to sell that story is impressive. But Bill Maher wasn't buying it. He shut her down immediately, reminding everyone that Kamala had years to prove herself. Voters didn't forget her. They evaluated her and said no.
No. You saying 3 months wasn't long enough? It was too long. It was long enough. It was long enough.
If they had had a primary...
It's not that they didn't have time to introduce. They met someone and didn't like them.
If they had had a primary, they wouldn't have picked her. And if they had, she would have been able to rough out those edges that then she basically has to start from scratch with a campaign team she didn't hire that didn't like her, right? It was his team. And so I wonder if that next Democratic person, maybe someone's not even on our radar yet. Because frankly, when you look at the history of who's there's two types. The one who waited in line, who was next in line, and then there's the one who comes out. That's Obama. That's Clinton. That's Reagan to some extent.
Sarah Isker continues pushing the idea that Kamala Harris was deliberately set up to fail, painting her as some kind of political sacrifice. According to this version, Democrats knew Biden was sinking and chose to protect another aging white man by tossing Kamala into the fire. How noble. But reality tells a different story. Kamala received endless media praise and gentle interviews. She had more protection than almost any candidate. If anything, she had the strongest position against Trump compared to her peers. Her downfall wasn't her identity. It was the party's obsession with woke messaging that boxed her in. It wasn't sabotage. It was an empty message.
I'm going to side with Sarah about this one thing. If you're the sitting vice president for a president who has, throughout his entire term in office, been sitting at about somewhere between a 35 and 40% approval rating. People view the Biden administration as a failure. We can have a long discussion about whether they are right about that, about the economy, but the perceptions of the economy were that people thought inflation was too high. People thought we were on the wrong track, 75% wrong track numbers, and this huge inflation overhang. You're the sitting vice president and you get put on elevated to the top of the ticket 107 days ahead of the election. I think that is a very high degree of difficulty put on anybody. And I do not think she is the perfect candidate. I tend to agree with Sarah that probably in a fully litigated primary, she probably would not have been the Democratic nominee, but we'll never know that.
Just when the excuses couldn't get worse, John Heilman jumped in to help Sarah Isker spin the failure. Suddenly, the same man who spent years praising the administration's economic messaging is now admitting the economy was a disaster. Funny how that works. For years, the media insisted inflation wasn't real, gas prices were fine, and grocery costs were just vibes. Now Heilman claims Biden's economy hurt Kamala's campaign. Even Bill Maher visibly lost patience as he watched them twist themselves into knots trying to rewrite history.
Never been anybody who's had the difficulty of that situation, elevated that late in the campaign.
Why? To run away from
Bill, I don't know if you know this, but the vice president of the United States is basically shoved in a broom closet for 3.5 years.
I know.
You couldn't.
She was more popular in there.
Yes, well.
I mean, there's this idea that in a mass media age, that 107 days
is not long enough to know somebody.
You are way overestimating the American people in terms of what their
No.
You have someone like Donald Trump has become a universally known, understood, loved by some, hated by others over the course of being omnipresent for 8 years.
Okay.
Barack Obama becomes president of the United States after running for 2 years as president, runs a 50-state primary, is on television, does dozens of Democratic debates.
Let's pause and be clear. Kamala Harris was not hidden away or ignored. She was given serious responsibilities. The border crisis, for example. And she failed spectacularly. Millions crossed into the country while she avoided visiting the border and dodged accountability. She was also offered major platforms, including Joe Rogan's podcast, and turned them down. Tough questions weren't welcome. And when she did speak publicly, it was filled with rambling answers, awkward laughter, and no substance. She wasn't sidelined. She was front and center, and couldn't deliver.
You ever watch this show? But I had Michael Douglas on this week.
Yeah.
and at the top, we were talking about this,
And he made a very good point that every other country in the world can do it in months, sometimes weeks. Why can every other country do it in that short a period of time? Are they all so much brighter than America? I don't think so.
Well,
mostly parliamentary. I mean, there's literal reasons, right? We don't have a parliamentary system.
I mean,
we also have a First Amendment. We don't make people campaign this whole time. The American people want to give them $20 and so they can afford it. I mean, small dollar donors are arguably the worst thing that's happened to our politics as it turned out.
It's a small dollar donor didn't make $20 billion.
A lot of it.
Kamala Harris began with momentum, media praise, historic narratives, and non-stop attention. But her party's fixation on woke politics destroyed any real connection with everyday Americans. People weren't interested in lectures about identity while struggling to afford food and gas. That's why voters didn't trust her leadership. Not because of her gender or race, but because she became the symbol of everything people were exhausted by. Meanwhile, Trump offered clear promises on the economy and stability. Like him or not, his message was simple and relatable. For many voters, the choice was obvious.
Either the person who's Googling the day before, did Biden drop out, or in a week. Did anyone in this audience not know enough about Kamala Harris pretty much after a week to make a decision? Yeah, people. And
How
it's
are you
ridiculous. We just get sicker of them.
what? So
How are you going to tell people they can't talk about politics?
What?
How with free speech that I know you love?
Yeah.
how are you going to limit people's ability to run for office?
I'm not limiting. We're not making a law.
Money, is there somehow
Of course.
ability to reduce money involved
Get
in
rid of
politics?
super PACs by making it
Oh.
no limits, full disclosure. 24-hour disclosure.
We could
should
fix
have
democracy
instant
in a
disclosure.
minute. Get rid of gerrymandering. Get rid of money in politics.
Wait, get rid of it. You're not
Get rid of
gonna
the
get rid of
electoral
it. It's
college.
water.
No, none of that is. We're going to keep working with this constipated system that we live with.
Bill Maher made a critical point that many ignored. In today's world of non-stop media and viral clips, it only takes about a minute to understand a candidate. Trump's celebrity didn't win him elections, his message did. Make America Great Again was clear, memorable, and powerful. Now ask yourself, can you name a single Kamala Harris message that came close? Exactly. Her campaign was full of empty phrases, awkward laughs, and no vision. That's not leadership, that's a vacuum.
Mention is that no people were late deciders in the election.
No, they were. I talked about them last week.
Right.
Christmas Eve shoppers,
So those people apparently needed longer than 90
they
days.
would have been
Always
undecided.
going to be.
Exactly.
They were always
That's why I call them. I called them, John, I said this last week. I called them Christmas Eve shoppers. My father was one. People who don't buy their presents until the Christmas Eve night. He would go into the store and he wouldn't feel like he could do it until he was fully in the spirit. You had to be in the store on Christmas Eve with Santa and all the fucking elves and everything that was going on.
By the end, John Heilman was clearly panicking. He even claimed undecided voters didn't have enough time to judge Kamala Harris, saying 3 months wasn't enough. In today's digital age, that excuse is laughable. Bill Maher shut it down immediately, reminding everyone that America already runs one of the longest election cycles in the world. Time wasn't the issue. The problem was refusal to face reality. Kamala Harris never presented a clear, compelling message. Voters saw through it. She wasn't pushed aside, she was given the spotlight and failed. And as Bill Maher made clear, endless excuses only make Democrats look more disconnected. Americans want clarity and competence. Kamala delivered neither. That's the truth. No spin, no denial, just reality. If you're tired of media protecting failure, like, subscribe and stay tuned. We call it exactly as it is.